Hello, good day, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Oluwato saying, in case you are seeing my channel for the first time, you're welcome, and to all my returning subscribers, you're also welcome. In today's video, we are going to be learning how to cut and sew a bodycon dress, just like you are seeing on your screen, but ours is going to have a back zip and then a back slit. The basic measurements you would need to measure on anybody to achieve a dress like this are the full length, the bust, the waist, the hip, and then the shoulder and the armhole. Then we are going to be using this velvet fabric. Then we'll fold that into 4, leaving the zipper allowance at the back. I'm folding into 4 because I'm folding for the front and the back at the same time. So I'm going to be folding into 4. Obviously, this dress does not have that, and then doesn't have half cut, so I'm just going to fold straight into 4, leaving the zipper allowance. In this case, I used 1 inch as my zipper allowance. Then a hip is 36 divided by 4 is 9, and then I added 1 inch sewing allowance. That is what I'm just checking before proceeding to proper measurement. So the next thing to do after this is to measure our shoulder, which is going to be divided by 2. Our shoulder is 14. I'm dividing it by 2. Then from that point, I'm going to measure a armhole. Armhole is actually 16 divided by 2. I'm supposed to measure 8, but at this point, I'm just going to be working with 7. Then I'll proceed to drawing the armhole curve. The person I'm making this dress for doesn't want our armhole to be too deep. That is why I used this curve. If not, I would have used this dotted line that I marked, but because she doesn't want the armhole too deep, I'm just going to leave it like this. The next thing to do is from your armhole, measure 2.5 inch downward, and on that point, measure your bust divided by 4. Mark that, and then I'm using 1 inch sewing allowance. After then, I'm going to mark 5 inches downward from the bust line. That is the point where our waist is going to be. So I'm going to divide our waist by 4 as well. Then I'll proceed to add in 1.5 inch sewing allowance. The next thing is there's something I call first hip. Basically is the skirt waist, but I consider it anytime I'm sewing a fitted dress like this. So from the waistline, I'm going to measure 4 inches downward. On that 4 inches point is where I'm going to measure a first hip, which is a skirt waist, divided by 4. Then I'm using 1 inch sewing allowance as well. From that point, I'm going to go downward with 4 inches, and on that point, I'm going to measure a hip divided by 4. Then I'm adding 1 inch sewing allowance. The next thing to do is to connect these 4 points together. I mean the allowance point, not the actual measurement point. So connect these 4 points together, and then you proceed to taking your marking downward, depending on how fitted you want or how pencil you want the lower part of your dress to be. After that, just proceed to cutting it out, and then after cutting it out, we'll go back to marking out the neckline. Obviously, it's a round neck, high neck, front and back. So I'm going to be using neck width of 6 on division of 2. Now I'm marking 3, and then the neck depth for front is going to be 3 inches as well. The back is going to be 1 inch. So for a start at this point, I'm going to be cutting front and back together, after which I'll proceed to recutting the neckline. Then I'll slant the shoulder line with 1/2 inch downward. The next thing to do now is to mark where my zip is going, like how long my zip is going to be on the body of the dress. And to do that, I'm just going to put my zip on the back panel, and then I'll mark it. Just have it at the back of your mind that the longer the zip, the easier it gets to put on the dress. After that, I'm going to be marking where I want my slit to start from, because this person is not really a tall person. Our full length is 57. So I'm going to be making a slit start from 35. So I'll just proceed to marking 35. And from that point where the zip stops to the point where the slit starts, I'm just going to stitch that point down very, very well. The next thing to do is to open it up, and then I'll put the right side of the back to the right side of the front, just like I'm arranging. Then I'll proceed to stitching down the shoulder line on both sides. After this, the next thing to do is to fold the neckline. Just double fold the neckline as neatly as possible. Then double fold the armhole as well as neatly as possible on the 2 armholes. So when I'm done doing this, the next thing to do is to fix my zip. I fix my zip with shape so that it doesn't bulge. I mean, I measure before I fix my zip, and that is what I'm about doing now. So what I'm going to do is, when you arrange your dress like this, you are going to first mark out the allowance. On the bust I used 1 inch allowance, so I'm going to mark 1 inch, and from that point I'll mark our bust divided by 4. I'm going to put a mark at that point. So when I'm coming from up, by the time I'll get to the bust side, that is where my zip is going to be. Then on the waistline I used 1.5 inch, so I'm going to mark 1.5 inch inward. Then I'm going to mark our waistline divided by 4. Then I'll proceed to the first hip. I used 1 inch allowance at that point, so I'll mark 1 inch inward. Then I'm going to mark our first hip divided by 4. I'll mark that point as well. Then to the hip, I'll do the same thing. I used 1 inch allowance on the hip region. I'm going to measure 1 inch inwards. Then I'll proceed to marking a hip divided by 4. You can see that following my marking, it's already like giving the shape of a proper back, that like the way it's supposed to be. So I'm just going to pick up my zip and then sew it on that part that I marked. So that's how it's going to be. If you fix your zip this way, it's not going to bulge at the back. It's just going to lay perfectly on the back of whoever is wearing the dress that you're making. So I'm going to pick up my zip and I'll just make sure that I sew it on the exact place that I have marked. When I'm done sewing my zip on one side, I'm going to turn it over to the other side and still follow the same marking I marked on the side I attached my zip to initially. I hope you guys get what I'm saying. So just do that. Then the next thing to do is to shape. Put the right side to right side, just like I did. When I was done fixing my zip, I pressed the part where I fixed the zip on. So put the right side on right side and then you start shaping. From the middle, divide the bust by 4, mark that point. Then I'm just trying to confirm the armhole. A armhole, I said is 16, so I'm supposed to measure 8, which is exactly what I measured. Then from the middle, divide the waist by 4 and then you mark that. The first hip divided by 4 as well, then you mark that point. Then the actual hip divided by 4 and then you mark that. You can see that I'm starting my measuring from the middle to the side, not from one side to the other, from the middle to the side. That is why I'm dividing by 4. So just connect your point together and then you take your hand straight down, take that to your sewing machine, then you sew it down, flip it to the other side just like I've done here. Then you start dividing your measurement by 2 now, not 4 like we did earlier. So the bust divided by 2, starting from the point that you sew initially. Then the waist divided by 2, the first hip divided by 2, the actual hip divided by 2. Just mark those points and then you connect these 4 points together and you proceed to sewing that as well. When I was done, I proceeded to folding the down with 2 inches allowance that I added to the length initially. And after this is what my dress is looking like. Guys, this dress actually comes with this kimono, this organza kimono that is giving this rich auntie vibe. In my next video, I'm going to be talking about how to cut and sew this organza kimono. If you are interested, please check out for my next video. Just watch out for my next video. Thank you so much for sticking with me from the beginning of this video till this point. I hope you find this video helpful and interesting. Please don't forget to subscribe if you've not, and you should turn on notification bell so you get notified when next I upload new video on this channel. Don't forget to share my video and links to your soulmate as much as you can. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any question, please kindly ask me in the comment section down below. And guys, I have a detailed tutorial on how I made that gorgeous dress on that gold mannequin on the background. I'll put the link up here.